So, a little information about magnitudes of earthquakes. I don't know how much folks have looked into them and so on, but this is kind of how it breaks it down so you get an idea of just how powerful they become as they go up in number. So the Scotts Mills earthquake, does anybody remember that one from 1993? Yep. So that one was a 5.6. Okay, so 30 times energy released. If you go one more full magnitude up, 30 times 30, it's 900 times the amount of energy of a 5.6. And so on until you can see when we get up to about that 8.6 level, if that plate shifts and that subduction quake happens, that's a lot of energy that's going to be released. And it can cause a lot of damage. Okay, these are just some quakes that have been felt in Oregon over the years that have been recorded. So it gives you those magnitudes, gives you an idea of ones that have hit in this area, and this is the Pacific Northwest. In 1873, there was a 6.3 near Port Orford. Go down, you see those different years and so on. It gives you an idea of some of the stronger earthquakes that have hit here. So it's been hundreds of years since something beyond a 7.1 has hit. Okay, so even though they talk about 8.6, 9.0 capable earthquake, if that plate shifts out there, it's been hundreds of years again since it's happened. Okay. In the event that it did, though, most of us know that 2004 earthquake that hit Indonesia. Thousands of people that died. Now, that was a very concentrated collection of people in a populous area. And so when it hit, they were all on the coast, and a lot of people perished. Our coast is much more spread out, obviously, and we have a lot more elevation on our coast in different areas. So we do have, though, flat, low-lying coastal areas that are going to experience extreme devastation with the tsunami that hits. But a lot of our populous areas are high sitting as well. The ocean water is going to hit them, but they're sitting well above it. Okay? But again, just an idea to realize just how much damage and devastation can occur. Okay, so the Cascadia subduction zone is out there. It is over 600 miles long. It stretches from Northern California to British Columbia. Okay, it is capable, as we said, of producing a 9+ magnitude earthquake over wide areas. It is similar in size, as we said, to the 2004 Sumatra, Indonesia earthquake. And again, devastating tsunamis. Just a good view of it so you can kind of see that Juan de Fuca plate. It's all the way up there by British Columbia, comes all the way down by the northern coast of California. Okay, so what happens if that plate shifts out there? So a lot of folks, there's been some information that's been in the news the last couple of years that says, well, the water's going to be all the way at Portland's front door, or Dallas is going to be underwater at that point. Well, that is not going to happen. Whole coastal range of mountains between us and the ocean, so that isn't coming this way. And in fact, what we do know is it's only going to wash about 2 to 3 miles inward. Let me go back to that one for just a second, too. So, do folks know much about tsunamis or how they occur? A little bit. Okay, so what happens with like a plate system like we have off of our coast? There's one plate that's sitting up above another, and one of them is pushing against each other, and eventually it's going to go like this, and it's going to dive under the one that it's pushing against. When that happens, it pulls the ocean's water down with it. And as soon as you do, the water behind that starts to roll into a wave, and as it moves inland, it gathers speed and strength and size. And that's what a tsunami is and how they occur. So as I said, 2 to 3 miles inward. However, rivers are going to experience some surge. So rivers like the Columbia, water is going to surge back up. It's going to push back up through the Willamette and so on, but it should recede within a day or two. However, community accessibility across the state is going to be affected, and that includes us. And in our area, what we know is we should expect moderate damage. And this map right here is going to show you a little bit more about where we're located. So you see the red stripe right here? That's like devastation. That's the coastal area that's probably going to get hit that hard. And any resources in terms of federal level, like our Navy and so on, they're already queued up to know that if this happens, head for the coast of Oregon and Northern California, because those people are going to need the most help. So that's where that help is going to go. The next one in, this is severe damage right here. So that's mostly the coastal range along that part of our state. And if you look, you can't see it very well, but right up there is Salem. Portland and the Salem right there, which is obviously right about where we're at. So we're in the moderate area for damage if that earthquake hits at that level. And then the rest of the state is mild to almost nothing, okay? So. Remember you have a laser. I know, I'm terrible at those. I can't see them though. Moderate damage. This is something that's severe enough that could happen. With moderate damage, and a lot of this information comes from the 2013 Oregon Resiliency Plan. So if you ever want to get online and look that up, you can find it very easily by Googling it. Buildings, facades, very likely can break away, okay, but the structure itself should be mostly intact and still standing. What we do know is that single-story structures survive the best. So any of those folks that are in garden homes out there, if that thing hits that hard, your house is going to be sitting right where it was when it's all over, still in one piece. Probably some broken glass, probably some cracked drywall and so on, but it's still going to be up. Okay? If it's bolted to a foundation, it's not going anywhere. Okay? These are the different hazards you can experience with an earthquake. So ground shaking and amplification, liquefaction, landslides, and tsunamis. We already know what this is, and obviously landslides. Liquefaction, that's when if the soil is loose enough and the shaking is severe enough, it can actually turn almost liquid-like and allow things to just sink down into it. So what we're fortunate about here is that this whole community and area is sitting on a huge bed of clay that's very thick. And if it's very, very dry, it's like a rock. Right. If it's very, very wet, it's like a very wet soaked rock. So it's just going to, the shaking and the amplification, that's going to be a very real thing, but we're not going to experience any of these other parts. So that's the thing that we're most concerned about. Okay. So a little bit more information about just how often that plate shifts and what's experienced here in our coast and our area. There have been 34 events that they've been able to identify over the last 10,000 years, okay? 19 of those were full margin events, so this would be like 8.6, 9 plus magnitude earthquakes. But only 5 reached the northern coast of Oregon. So right up here where we're at, only 5 of those in the last 10,000 years reached this far. Only 5 of them reached the middle coast of Oregon, and only 5 reached the southern coast of Oregon. So that's pretty minimal when you think about it over that long period of time. Oftentimes it doesn't even come up this far, most of the time. And this is how they know that this is how it happens. They do soil samples and studies where they actually excavate parts of it, and all of these different layers in here tell them when those tsunamis hit on the coast. So they're actually able to do some geological measurements and determine when those events happen. And the last big subduction zone earthquake that we know of was January 26, 1700. So that's the last time that it shifted out there, and it was a pretty severe earthquake. Long time ago. This particular one is talking about the intervals that they actually happen in. So the Washington coast, they've been able to figure out it's about every 600 years that subduction zone shifts and that they experience an earthquake. On the Oregon coast, it's about every 480 years. So if you take that 1700 one, we're still 100 more years below when that's expected to occur. So that's the average. And on the southern Oregon coast, it's about every 300 years. Okay? So, along the little article here, this is from the New Yorker. It was a couple of years ago, at least 2 years ago, I want to say. This is available online still. So if you want to get this link from us at any time, I'd be happy to provide it to you. You can go read the full article. It's a wonderful article. It's written by a lady who actually has lived in the Northwest a lot of her life and commutes back and forth between here and New York. And she gives some great information about what to expect. So, but one of the most important parts about this is when it gets to the bottom. It talks about the odds of it actually happening. There's a 30% chance of a magnitude 8.0 to 8.6 earthquake, okay, and about a 10% chance of one stronger than that happening in the next 50 years. So the odds are getting kind of narrowing down a little bit more. I've said this a lot in other presentations where I talk about the Cascadia subduction zone and so on, is that earthquake could happen and it could be occurring and begin before I even finish the sentence I'm saying right now. But it also could be another 800 years. So if you read that top part there, it says we're not even remotely close to being past, being overdue for this earthquake. And it could be 800 years before we're even past, getting to a point where they consider us being overdue. So hopefully that alleviates a lot of stuff for people, less things to consider or worry about. Again, we're not even remotely overdue yet. My bad. Okay, so I'll move on from this one. So here's some important ideas to kind of consider, okay? Oregon is more prepared today than prior to 1994. So our fire departments, police departments, emergency responses, this has been on people's radar for a long time. So we are better prepared now than we ever have been. But before 1994, the requirements were less so. So older infrastructure is going to be a factor, and obviously we've got old infrastructure throughout the state of Oregon. That part of their businesses and organizations have a resiliency plan. It's a great thing to be considering. Okay? Any businesses that are out there and so on, you got to be thinking about how are you going to survive through something like this. And we have that in place here at DRV. We still can't predict them, but we're hopeful that we will respond well. So that's how we're going to continue to approach it. And how well prepared are you at home? We're going to talk about that. And I'm now going to turn the mic over to Steve, who's going to take a turn talking.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, first time up here, so everybody bear with me. Hopefully you can hear me. All right. How should we be prepared? Places, processes, and people. Places. Earthquake happens around here, you want to stay in your home. We're going to do what we call defend in place. At that time, you will be safer than anybody else on campus, and we will shortly get down to you and take care of you about later in the slides. Process. Our process here at the Dallas Retirement Village is we have what we call an emergency operations plan. These books are available at the front desk, at any of the facilities, and any nurse stations in the health center. Basically, the employees can go through here for any situation, and we have a plan and a plan intact to take care of any situation that should occur here on campus. DRV staff will remain throughout the organization's emergency plans, and residents practice individual preparedness. I think I'm talking a little too fast. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so let me slow down. A little nervous, I think. People. DRV staff and residents working together. We're all going to have to work together in the event of an emergency here. No one person can do everything. We're all going to have to gather together as a community. We have plenty of DRV supplies and resources that we can take care of you guys and us. And individual resident supplies and resources, that's what we're here to talk about today. DRV Disaster Preparedness. Hey, I have my screen. So, DRV Disaster Preparedness. Let's see if I can loop this one out for a little bit. Anybody got anything good to talk about? All right, here we go. Currently, we are set up with 2 disaster preparedness sheds. We have one located just down here next to the Hobby Center. I don't know if you've seen the neat little shed we put up over there. We've got that stocked with proper linens, and et cetera, to get us through a disaster. We also have another building out back, employee parking behind the health center, next to Jim's shop out there, and it is also fully contained. In that shed out back, we have 3 275-gallon water containers, presently full of water, stacked and prepared for any emergency that we should have. Plus, there's also a full pallet of bottled water. So we can get that out ASAP to anybody in need of water. And then, what else we got out there? We got 2 Berkeley water filtration systems. So we can pull water from anywhere, the creek, wherever we can access some water, and we can filter water to get us through after we get through the 275 gallons. So we got plenty of days before we have to worry about that. We also have a power water pump for pumping the water in, so we can get it filtered in and pumping it out to refill our tanks. Collapsible H2O containers, so we can fill those up and distribute those throughout the community as needed. What else we got? We got some 2-way radios out there, so we can distribute between the staff, so we can kind of keep everything organized as far as we need a triage or whatever the case may be. And we need to call Linda and make sure she's got some food ready for us. And then just in case, we also have a satellite phone. As most of us know, if a magnitude hits here, if anything over 8, our cell phone towers are not really going to be standing that well. They suggest that you do not use your cell phone for making phone calls. If you have a chance and you still have a signal, you want to use your cell phone to text people. The text uses a lot less energy and uses a lot less of the airwaves, so you can still communicate. Next. DRV preparedness supplies, planned additions for the facility sheds. Right now we've got the facility shed storage building out here. We want to get some more extra kits in there, some more extra Berkeley water filtration systems, more collapsible H2O containers. I have a feeling if we're in the middle of a disaster, we're not going to be overstocked. We're going to need everything we can get. Some more 275-gallon water storage tanks for up in this facility. We're going to have plenty of water. We're not going to worry about that. Freeze-dried food in bulk. More 2-way radios. More first responder disaster response kits. Anybody know what a first responder disaster kit is? I see nobody knows.
So what those are is something we're developing within our committees so that as our staff respond to our emergency response plan, that they will be able to know to go to these sheds and grab those kits out. And it's like a backpack full of response stuff. It's, you know, probably a reflective vest, flashlight, two-way radios in there, multiple other things. We've got other things in mind we want to add to it as well, so they know to grab that and hit the ground running following their emergency operations plan.
Thank you.
And now we're heading off to service.
Roll right in there for
Okay. Well, I think we'd like to expound a little bit also on water and why we chose the particular water purification system that we chose as a group. There's a difference between filtering and purification. And I just want to point that out because some of you may choose to have kits at home and maybe you're using things like the pure water filters and you know, that's okay for filtering your water on a day-to-day basis. But during a big event, there's a much higher potential for contaminated water. And we as a group are confident that we're really well prepared. You know, like Steve talked about, we could go anywhere outside of campus and pump water out, bring it to campus and filter it. Right now we have the capability to purify, and this is a system, the particular system that we have chosen is what relief workers use in third world countries during disasters. So it'll take the worst water and it'll purify it to a pathogen-free state. Right now we have the capability to purify 336 gallons per day, and that's something that we're building on. For still this year, we're purchasing some more supplies for the disaster preparedness, and next year as well. So we're going to probably double that capacity because we have the ability to feed 650 people 3 meals a day for a week. We want to factor in not only residents, but staff, and even, you know, it may end up being folks from our community nearby who are stepping up to help us, depending on what the situations are.
So yeah, let me just reiterate that we have tons of food on campus. So we have, you know, we can feed 650 people 3 meals a day, but obviously, we want to make sure that you folks are prepared, and we're going to go through the next slides on how you folks can be prepared living independently. That's right, you are already better prepared than you know. So we're talking about shelter in place right here. Everyone knows shelter in place. The best thing that you can do is get to the floor and get underneath something as fast as possible. So an earthquake starts shaking, that's what you want to do, the first thing that you want to do. If for whatever reason you can't get to the floor, the best thing to do is just stay still. No need to be panicking and running around or trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, it will stop shaking.
And what we know from the resiliency plan as well is that if it did hit that strong 8.6 plus to 9 over, in moderate area, 3 to 4 minutes of shaking is what they would expect from start to finish. So once the beepers start doing it, within about 3 to 4 minutes, it should be tapering off and stop.
Okay, so your home is your resource. So obviously, everyone here, most of us, have food at home. Some of us have more than others. So food on hand, blankets and clothing, water, it's available in places you don't always think about. You know, going through a couple of things right off the bat, what do we have in our houses that everybody uses every day? Toilets, right? And obviously, so inside the toilet in the water tank, there's water that's available. That is an emergency water that we have there for everyone. We have the ability to make water. We have water on campus, but that's just there as well. So, you know, keep in mind that you have water in your garden homes and in your apartment. Preparing your household, right? So most people use 1 gallon per person per day. Food, as we go through, the best way to make your food available and have it safe for you is use all the perishable food first, right? So anything that you have out, like fruit, vegetables, things like that, and then we go into you know, freezer and canned fruit at the very last. We want to make sure that we use that in the correct order. We don't want to be pulling stuff out of the freezer when we have food going bad, like fruit, something like that. Right? Shelter, extra clothing, blankets, flashlights, medication, all these kind of things that you have already in your house. And the most important thing is to get a plan going. You know, partner with your neighbors, create a separate disaster preparedness kit. All that stuff we're going to kind of go into a little bit more, but you know, the most important thing is that we, all of us, get organized within the community, and you know, we can talk about that a little bit.
So after we're finished here, we have some examples of disaster kits that that we've put together, as well as some emergency preparedness foods, some different examples of things that are available pretty readily, many of them locally. Did you want to start talking about the disaster kit? Okay. Okay, so I think one of the last points for food and how we're ready across campus, we have chosen not to have like one separate building where we store food for the campus. What we do is, because we have such a diverse food service program with so many different kitchens and storage areas, we've chosen to really keep our inventory, our working inventory higher than, you know, is typical for a food service operation, so that in the event of an emergency and a disaster, we can pull from our existing sources. And, you know, one area of campus may be more devastated than another, so we have the strength in numbers of having those multiple locations. Part of our emergency plan is exactly what was outlined there for you folks at home, which would be, you know, we would keep our coolers and our freezers shut and as intact as possible, and limit the, you know, people going in and out of it and losing temperature, so that during the first 24 or 48 hours, we can begin using those perishable foods first and then move on to our dry storage bins. And I think that's it for food for now.
Hi, everybody. So on the slide up here, we wanted to talk about what you can do in your homes and lodge apartments and independent living. So we suggest that you get together and have a captain, or a neighborhood captain, if you want to call it, to help with the disaster emergency preparedness for you. Just to let you know that our priority, if a disaster does hit, our first priority will be the most vulnerable of our citizens, which will be our health center, and then our assisted living, and then we will get out to everyone, out to check on everyone, but those will be first. So in the meantime, if you have captains in each of your areas to help, and we suggest that this is separate of resident council. Okay, so if you get together, and we can help you with this, somebody can help you get this organized and get it started. So for garden homes, 1 resident per each cul-de-sac. For village apartments, 2 for each floor, and lodge residents, 1 for each floor. You can always have more, or it's all up to you. These are just suggestions that we have for you. So other things we can have for you.
So the only thing that I would add additionally to that is that, as this is one way that was done historically with garden homes, we think this would be a great way to bring this back in again. So folks, again, you can start collectively working together, group yourselves, and then in the end of that is a disaster. As we have more staff pouring in, we're able to break away from our 2 licensed areas and start addressing the entire community. that we have somebody that we can go right to, okay? So if we're coming into a group of garden homes, we may be looking for that captain so that we can say, you know, is everybody here okay? Do we need to do anything or help with anything right now? And if the answer is yes, we send resources now. If the answer is no, we're okay, then we can move on to check everybody else. So saving times, it's going to save lives. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay, so another thing you guys can do at your homes is we're going to be handing these out to you. Some of you may have these already in your homes, but these have changed. So you'll want to get rid of your old ones and have these ones. And this will tell you what Dallas Retirement Village's responsibilities are in a disaster and what the resident responsibilities are in a disaster. So you'll want to keep that handy and review that. Another thing we'll have is for the garden homes, we'll give you each one of these. In a garden home, when a disaster hits, what we want you to do is put these in your window. If you need help, when our teams go out, they will be entering your home to see what help you need. If you put okay in your window, then we're going to bypass your home for now and go to the ones that need the help. If you don't have one of these in your window, we're going to enter your home to see if you're okay. All right? So you'll each be getting one of these for your homes as well, put in your windows. And now we have for independent living and the lodge, we have the same thing, but these will go on your doorknobs, of course. So in a disaster, you'll put help or okay, and we'll either bypass or go in to help you. If you don't have that on your doorknob, we will enter your apartment.
Village apartments and lodge residents, this is what you'll have, okay?
And I think that's it for us. Okay.
Talk about that.
Hi, I'm happy to be on this committee because I have 4 dogs and 4 cats, so I'm a very animal-oriented person. So.
Well, I have 2 cats, 2 Caribbean hermit crabs, a fish, and I just recently adopted a rat, which I'm not too excited about, but the cats are, so that's good. So we're going to talk about how to be prepared for your animals in the event of a disaster. So, oh yeah, we can't miss the most important one. Don't get caught with your pets down. And this is one of my cats, Milo. And this is my daughter's dog, Chloe. In the event of an evacuation, take your pet with you. A lot of Red Cross shelters do not accept animals unless they are service animals. So if you cannot shelter in place, you're going to want to stay with your animal in your home. If you are not home when a disaster strikes, consider a buddy system with a neighbor so they can check on your pet. Most of you probably have a good relationship with most of your neighbors, know that you have animals, and they will probably come and check on you and help you check on your animal. Okay, so this is Mama, and this is, what is it? An emu. We thought it was a peahen at first, but we were wrong. Keep your pets vaccinated, vaccination records and current documentation available. So one of the most important things is you want to make sure that you have that on hand in a safe place where you can grab it really quickly when there's a disaster. Know your pet's hiding places so they are easily found in the event of a disaster. Some pets obviously are going to react in different ways, probably get scared, maybe become a little aggressive, so you want to keep an eye out for that.
This one's mine. This is
Root beer.
and he was wearing a monkey mask, so.
Okay, so these are my 2 cats, Bubbers and Milo. Stressed pets tend to act differently and may become aggressive, so include some toys in your supply kit to help reduce stress and boredom. I believe this is Mike's dog, Rigby. He had gotten into a patch of hitchhikers in the backyard. So, oh, and here we go, Millie. This is one of Kim's dogs. You want to have enough food and water to last 10 days for each pet. Have extra sturdy leashes, harnesses, muzzles if needed, an extra collar, ID tag in case one breaks, and we have little examples of ID tags here. You want to make sure that you have good identification on your animal. If they escape, run away, you can't find them, you want to make sure that they can be easily identified.
With mine, I just have the my telephone number, but if you don't have that, the cell service and stuff, I'm changing mine and putting the address as well of where they belong. So,
It'll also include a pet carrier to transport your pet safely if you need to, and ensure that they cannot escape. There's Ruth here.
that's one of them.
You want to read one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In your kit, you want to include a pet bed and toys that are easily transportable, medications, medical records, and water. Wait. Oh, and a waterproof container. That makes sense. Also include a current photo of your pet and you together in case you get separated, and plastic bag for the not so nice part. And we will have more information at our lovely table over here. We have a link at the bottom of the page, a good website for more detailed information on how to be prepared for your pet.
Thank you.
Okay, so before I talk about Civic Ready here, Linda actually wants to bring up some of the pieces from the table here because it might be a little difficult for everyone to get around past us to look at it, but she wanted to show you a few things from the disaster preparedness kits and what's included in them.
So, there's a lot of different resources out there for putting together these kits. But in choosing the items that for the kit that we've put together here, because so often, if you look on the websites that offer the lists of what you should choose in your emergency preparedness kits, it doesn't factor into being part of a large community like this. We've spoken about food and water availability. And so what we wanted to focus on was the things that maybe aren't as quickly readily available and that can most help in the first 24 hours of chaos that can ensue. And also, looking at our climate and when potentially things can happen. Rain can be a big factor. And so we really recommend having a water-resistant bag. And this bag is an example of one that's fairly inexpensive and has separate compartments where you could also put emergency clothing. A change of clothing is an important thing to have in a preparedness bag. And then the other two most potentially urgent needs are light. If something happens, in the middle of the night. A lot of folks are not aware of some of these items that are available on the market. This is you can open it up actually and show. Yeah, this is a snap light, and this can provide, sure. Yeah, this can provide immediate lighting. They activate very easily. Mm-hmm. And that's a point I wanted to make. Most kits recommend everybody have a flashlight. The problem with just having a flashlight is, you can't necessarily hang it somewhere, or if you try to set it down to be able to accomplish a task, it can maybe not be shining in the direction you need it to. So we recommend a little lantern. This is an LED lantern that's very inexpensive, doesn't take up a lot of space. So the rest of the items we have over here, the last item I wanted to point out is the life straw. And many of you may be familiar with these. This is something, now these are not an inexpensive item. I believe about $15. You can get a life straw, but they're very portable. And you can, again, this purifies water. You could drink out of a polluted puddle with it and be safe. you know, most urgent needs that folks might have in an environment like this.
A question came up earlier today at a meeting I was at about a hot water tank. If you're in a garden home, there's 50 or so gallons sitting right there of water that's usable. But the concern that maybe there's sediment in the bottom, and would that be a concern? Well, one of these live straws would be the answer to that. You very easily drain the water out into a container and use the live straw to purify it. So, yes, sir.
One thing that.
We're holding questions to the end, Pastor.
No, this is a comment. If you notice that when you go across the bridge, underneath most of those bridges are sewer lines, water lines, and a gas line. When the bridge goes down, the creek is no longer safe to drink out of.
Anything more, Linda, you wanted to cover on that?
That was it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk about Civic Ready here in just a second, but I want to elaborate a little bit more on our emergency operations plan for our staff here. There is a page in the very front of about 35 key people here at Dallas Retirement Village, amongst with everybody sitting right here is on that list. So that in the event of any kind of emergency or disaster, there is an initiated call list that gets sent out, and all of us will respond. We are all on our way in here if we're not here already. Beyond that, our staff also know that regardless of the emergency or disaster, they are still expected to come to work. Now, that being said, if it was something of this magnitude, obviously, we're going to have a certain number of people that are just going to probably want to worry about their own families right now. But we fully expect we will get a significant response from our staff. And as I said, the 35 or so people on that page, we're committed to be here no matter what. We're coming, okay? In addition, we talked about volunteers from the community. I think that's a real thing. We're going to have folks that we may not want here, but there's also going to be folks that know that this community of people is up here and that we may need help. And I expect we'll see them coming to give us a hand as well. So Dallas is a great community, as well as DRV. I think if something like this happens, we're going to find that we're going to survive it very well. Okay, Civic Ready. If you go to the Dallas, Oregon website, that's it right there, dallasorg.gov. And if you, when the page opens up, go right down to the bottom, scroll all the way down, and on the bottom you'll see a little orange banner that says Civic Ready. You click on that, it will take you through the prompts if you would like to join this. And it's provided by the City of Dallas, and it is an emergency information site that you can get responses from if you want to enter that information. So if you would like to get emails in the event of some kind of an emergency in our community, or a text message, or a phone call, you can put any of those possible venues in there so that you can receive information. And the City of Dallas just kicked this on about, I want to say a year, maybe a little over a year ago, and they are really asking it to grow. And they would love to see every citizen in Dallas join this, so that in the event there are emergencies or disasters, that is a place information will be disseminated from, and you can get that very quickly. So please take the chance and opportunity to look at that. Just, again, it's the City of Dallas website, go down to Civic Ready, and you can pick from the menu the different responses and things you would like to be alerted about. It could be road closures, it could be a fire danger in a certain area. I mean, there's a number of things on there you'll see, and you can get those notifications sent directly to you. Boil water notice, we had that here about 6 months ago, if everyone remembers. That was actually on Civic Ready. And if anybody who had joined that would have got that message sent directly to them. So much faster way for you to get informed before we can get you informed. So, okay? That's about all we have, unless anybody else from our committee here wants to add on to it. We'd be happy to take any questions, so feel free to ask any if you have them. Yes, sir?
Like in garden homes, we had a big earthquake, without the natural gas line, what should do?
Repeat the question for everybody.
Thank you. All right, so this gentleman was asking that in the event of a natural gas line eruption, what should be our response be? Okay, so within our emergency operations plan and within our Department of Facility Operations, we are all very well rehearsed in the gas shutoffs for this community. So we know exactly where to go, whether it's a garden home or a large building, and how to turn the gas lines off and make sure that we stay safe. Yes, sir?
What can we expect as far as electricity to?
Okay, so Harold's asking what can we expect as far as electrical service in the event of a disaster? The health center and a portion of the assisted living facility is fed by a generator up there. That, again, it's kind of a minimal response, but it's just enough to manage and take care of those folks in that licensed area. Down here, we have emergency lighting in the village apartments that will kick on. We have a generator that feeds the clubhouse here, and then emergency lighting in one of the elevators in the residence building. And that's kind of pretty much what we have. So, and the generator that's running this building, again, it's minimal electrical needs for it. It's mostly just telecommunication, a limited amount of HVAC, almost nothing in the kitchen. But we're actually going to look at that a little bit, because if our generator is still running, we think we could put more power up in and going to the kitchen, which in the event that this building stays intact in that kind of an emergency, we'd have a working kitchen we could operate out of. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
The water that you're storing, even the bottled water, has to be rotated. It doesn't store for.
So the question was, the stored water in our storage tanks as well as bottled water, how often are we rotating that? So the bottled water has an expiration date on it that we're monitoring, and as it gets closer to that, we will repurpose that water out into other events in the community and then replenish it with the new stuff. As far as the water in the containers, it is actually treated when it goes in, and it's good for 1 year. And we have a protocol in place that we change the water and retreat it once a year. Yes, Ed?
You're talking about pumping water. Do you have hoses long enough or whatever?
We do, yes. So Ed was asking about pumping water out of the creek in the event there are any other source that's available so that we can purify that water. Along with the pump, we have an intake and the outtake hose. Everything is intact. I think it's a 100-foot intake hose and a 25-foot outtake hose. In addition to that, that's not listed on here, but we are looking into purchasing a large bladder tank that, again, can be stored flat, but it can hold up to 500 gallons. So as we pump it and fill it with water, we have a truck that's capable of carrying that as well, then we can bring it back here and run it through our Berkey filtration system. So, I saw a hand up back here. Yes? In the health center, the question was how many residents are in the health center. So there's 121 beds, but we average a census of around 100 most of the time. So, and then the assisted living facility and memory care, there's about 85.
So that number 650 is what, based on what, when you started it out on the slideshow?
That's what we could, that's how many people and staff.
That's how many people and staff we can actually feed.
Not the number of people that actually live.
No.
No, we actually are a little under that. So, I think we're a little over 400 residents here currently throughout all the community, and then however many staff. I mean, during the day, I don't know, once there are 150 of us here. So we can easily exceed, the number of people on campus at even the most populous time and feed them. So, plus the number of other people more. So, any other questions? Hold up at the same time. How about right here in front? Yes, ma'am.
Most of the LED lamps have batteries. They will go out. If it's generator, is it over to people could come and recharge them?
The question was about batteries and maybe the best choices in terms of battery life and whether they're rechargeable or not. So it depends again on the emergency light you choose to buy. Some of them do have rechargeable batteries. So I can see certainly the capability on our generator ran spaces, the ability to recharge some things for people too. I'm sure that's something you establish fairly quickly. Yes, yeah. So we have outlets that are still live with the generator line. Hi, Kate.
Okay, my question is, you mentioned in your pet supply thing, you need to have a other business. We're two-legged animals. We also have the other business. Has anything been thought about to address this issue?
Yes, it is. And the fortunate thing with all of independent living is that you can benefit from the resources that we have in the health center and assisted living. So within those areas, and then even in these buildings too, we have tons of housekeeping supplies. So we have plans in place for creating toileting capabilities. So bagging would be part of it, using bedside commodes and so on. We have tarps that we can create private areas to do that with. And then as we get our staff in and establish our chain of command and our headquarters, our command posts, we will be assigning people tasks. So one of them will be managing that as well. Do you have a question, Mike?
No. He's pointing at me. It's like,
anybody else? Okay, well, as Kim and Sherry were speaking about the block captains or the floor captains and so on, again, we really would encourage people to start talking amongst yourself, think about who might like to be involved with that. And please reach out to us here. You can get directly to me through the Independent Living front desk, and we will help you begin to organize that and make it something that's more robust. Okay, and we're happy to assist. So,
Hey, Larry,
yes, sir.
3 years ago, you talked about, since we're so prepared, all of those outsiders are going to come in. What are you going to do?
So his question was, if we're that well prepared, which he's probably right, a large part of the community is going to assume that we are, and as those outsiders come this way, how are we going to manage that? Well, we are going to hope that folks are coming here asking for help and not coming to take help. But we're expecting the large response of our staff that are going to be here. As we're a community of people that are all working together, we're going to be prepared and aware of those folks that may not be coming here just asking. We'll deal with that when it happens. We can only do so much, you know, folks, you individually, us as an organization, and we've got to be reasonable about that and still enjoy our lives and not let it overtake us or overcome us in any way. So this has hopefully been informational and give you some idea of how well prepared we are, the things that you can do. And once those things are in place, let's just enjoy. Shoot for 10 days, okay? 10 is a good solid number. I'm confident, even though they say, you know, community-wise across the state, we're going to be affected. I think we're going to see things pull together a lot faster than we think. Because this is on everybody's mind, our state as well as people. Okay, can I answer any other questions? Yes, one more.
What about gas? Do you have any gas?
Yes, as a matter of, we don't have gas storage capability, but that is something else we're considering with our disaster preparedness sheds, is the addition of cooking tops and some gas storage that we would be able to manage cooking that way without any of the kitchens operating. So that is something else we're looking into. I'll bring something else up that some folks have elected to do and other folks have asked about, is generators for their homes. We do have a few residents in garden homes here who have generator systems already set up. There's nothing wrong with that, and we can help you facilitate setting something like that up. We have at least one person who has a natural gas generator set up. We have a few other folks that have raw fuel ones. There's some limitations to that. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, because obviously you've got some power that will run your home, but you're limited by both of those things. Only so much raw fuel and its availability, and then gas if it's still on and available as well. So if you're going to invest money into disaster preparedness, I would start with the simple things first, and then think about whether you want to go to that level of expense. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments folks would like to make? Well, thank you for your time and for joining us. Please hang around for a little bit, check out some of the tables, pick up some of the information that we have here, enjoy some of the snacks that were provided, and thanks for coming. All right.